try that again. We'll call this joint council meeting of the Township of Chatsworth and the Township of Georgian Bluffs to order. Before we begin, thank you to Georgian Bluffs on behalf of Chatsworth for hosting the meeting. We appreciate your hospitality. We have a land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the Three Fires, known as the Ojibwe, the Odawa, the Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. We further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, and the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land with and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. Have a motion that the agenda be approved as presented. Is there a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Thompson and moved by Mayor Burley. All in favor of the approval? And Councillor Sutherland? That is carried. Just remind members of both councils of their obligation to declare interest or pecuniary interest. Seeing nothing, if anything should arise, you may declare it at that time. We have CO Clerk Report 2022-03 be received for information by the Joint Councils of Chatsworth and Georgian Bluffs, and that the approval of the immediate maintenance for the biodigester as outlined in Report CAO 2022-03 be referred to both respective councils for consideration, which includes the immediate clean out at a cost of $70,939.14 and the replacement of a mixer at a cost of $18,500. Can I have a mover for that, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Carleton and seconded by Deputy Mayor Gamble. All right, we'll turn it over to CO Fletcher and Cinnamon to take us through their report.
Thank you, Mayor Mackey. And first of all, thank you to both councils for agreeing to meet with us on such short notice. We did prepared a joint report to the two municipalities to review tonight. As the report's indicated, we have, through Aqua, who is currently operating the system, have identified some maintenance issues. The maintenance issues were actually, part of it was actually budgeted in 2021, but we didn't approve the final capital budget. And so now we're having to deal with some of those capital issues. We have invited Indra and Mike from Aqua that can speak to more of the technical things, but it's time sensitive in that if we have approval to do the clean out, it's time sensitive in terms of the land application. So we felt it was best, rather than hosting a joint meeting and then referring it to our councils, that both municipalities hear the information at the same time, and then our respective council meetings are both next week. So that will help to move things along. And we both, CAO Fletcher and I, felt that it was important that both municipalities receive the information together. So I think at this point we could turn it over to Indra to provide some background information on what the repairs are. And included in the report is an estimate that Aqua obtained for us as well with regard to the clean out. And the mixer was actually included in that 2021 budget estimate, and we'll talk about that. Indra can only be here for 20 minutes, so I'll let him speak and give that information. And then if you have any questions directly to him, and then we can answer other questions from the two councils after that.
Thank you, Patty. We'll turn it over to Indra.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I'm from a phone, but I can't see all of you. Due apologies. Yeah, so usually every year we regularly clean out the digested tanks using a vendor that the town has contracted named Saugan agriculture. The issues started when one of the mixtures went down. So the function of the mixture makes the liquid and the solids so that it produces biogas, and then the liquid portion is stored in the digestive tank, which is usually land applied around early July to August, end of July or early August maximum time. But this year, on the unfortunate circumstances, is one of the mixture went down, which was already planned to be repaired. In due process of repairing the mixture, what we found once we start looking inside the digester is, because of the delay in cleaning the digester, there's about a couple of inches of thick solid formation above the liquid portion of the digester tanks. So the digester needs to be cleaned out in addition to the digestive tanks. So we explored the options to use the existing vendor that the town already have been using, which currently already hauls the liquid from the digestive tank. We approached them if they can add the additional scope of cleaning the solid portion of the digester and completely clean it so that we can take out the damaged mixture and then replace it with the new mixture to bring the plant back into operation. Now, while we are figuring all this out, it's a cascade of the events, unfortunately. Started with planning the repairment of mixture. While we're all figuring out, the plant has been off the operation for a few weeks now, unfortunately costing us the revenue coming from the tipping fee and subsequently production of the electricity. So the land application needs, as you know, where around the time field is ready to accept the material. So that's why there's some emergency need to get these repairs or clean out done immediately to meet that timelines. Thank you.
I wasn't completely able to hear everything, but CO Fletcher, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Mackey, I think essentially what we've got is a lot of buildup in the tank itself and in the system that needs to be cleaned out. As CAO Cinnamon indicated, there had been a plan to change out the mixer. It was included in a previous budget. We're at a point where the plant is not operating right now. It has been shut down, awaiting this clean out. We need to clean it out no matter what we do. If we want it to be operational, the mixer needs to be replaced. For us to get any revenue, the biodigester needs to be operational. So that's essentially what we need indication from councils and approval next week on, is that we can clean out the biodigester, we can replace the mixer, get it back to be operational. The bigger discussion about potential ownership, partnership, opportunities is still to come. We are working on potential information for our next joint meeting of council. But today, it really is about getting that asset back into play if we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before we take questions, is there anything further in regards to the discussions that the CAOs have had based on the I guess the tasks that both council presented to you? Are you able to share anything else about other work underway, feedstock availability? I know you can't get into any specific potential partners, but just assure us that maybe you've had some success in moving some of that agenda forward.
Through you, Mayor Mackey, and I'll invite my colleague to add anything. In both feedstock, potential partnerships, and potential ownership, there is movement, there is interest. I might turn to, I don't know if Mike from Aqua we might be able to hear him better. I know Indra's got a little bit of a tough connection, but the other thing that our operator has indicated is there are other townships in Ontario similar to ours who are building facilities like we have. So the business proposition is there. And I would say that we are moving the agenda forward. It's just a matter of that. The details of those discussions is for the future. Thank you.
So Mike, go ahead,
Yes,
and then I'll take questions from council. Floor is yours, Mike.
Sorry. Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Sorry, this is Indra. So I was going to respond on behalf of Mike. Yeah, recently Petawawa Town Council approved to construct similar facility, and there's multiple agricultural projects that is being constructed to do the similar function of bringing in feedstock and producing the gas and electricity. In our case, without disclosing a lot of details, which we will come back and present, yeah, right now we have been getting more than enough feed and handle in our existing facility, which is a clear indication that we can afford if we can resolve some of our constraint. Now, different arrangements around the long-term sustainable operation of the
Indra,
facility
can I
itself.
interrupt you? Indra,
Yeah.
can I interrupt you? We're having a lot of difficulties hearing you on our end, and I'm hearing our virtual participants or seeing them indicate the same. So I'm wondering if not to overstep, if we may hear from Mike, who may have a better connection.
It's for you, Mayor Mackey. Unfortunately, I don't have the background that Indra would have on the Petawawa relationship or opportunity. I'm just not involved with that in that part of the province. So unfortunately, I can't speak to it. Having said that, I don't know if Indra is able to try again and at least hopefully have a connection that'll work enough to get enough of the information out.
Okay. Well, I think we've tried twice with Indra, and the connection doesn't seem to be.
Is it better?
Okay, go ahead, Indra. Try it again.
Is it better now?
It sounds better. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm calling from phone. Not sure. Yeah. So what I was referring is currently the feedstock that we are getting from one of the very reliable provider. We are getting more requests than we can handle at this point. And that displays a clear indication that we have enough materials, and if we are able to resolve some of the bottlenecks we have in our existing facility, we would be able to exhaust in all the feed contracts revenue that is slated to be achieved and increase tipping fee. I was also alluding the fact that recently Town of Petawawa approved a $9 million project to construct and expand its existing facility to exactly perform the same function that Georgian Bluffs biodigester already does. There's also multiple agricultural projects that's happening across Ontario to construct facilities around similar scope and function, which is a very clear indication in the market that the feedstocks are getting more and more available. While in discussion with both CAOs, our recommendation has always been that we need to keep this asset operational, regardless of what the joint board and the subsequent councils decide to progress with the model of this operation. There's some interested parties that are willing to propose down the road to the owners, both municipalities, on their propositions in some formal way, and we will bring those information as instructed by both CAOs in subsequent meetings.
All right. Thanks, Indra. That connection was much better that time. All right.
I do apologize.
Questions from member of council. I saw Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Mackey. There's identifying each spot of the biodigester in our report study. It indicates 1,000 meters cubed biodigester. Is that what we're calling the mixer?
That question,
So
CO Fletcher, go ahead.
through you, Mayor Mackey, the mixer is a component within the whole biodigester system.
Thank you, but I'm just not sure which component it is because it indicates digestate storage tanks, 2 of them, and then the only other indicator is the biodigester, and it's 1,000 meters cubed. I think that is what we're calling the mixer. There isn't another component, I don't think, that could be the mixer. So we're talking about replacing the mixer and cleaning out the biodigester. And I'm wondering if they are the same thing. Is my question.
So the
They are not.
So the digested tank is the structure that stores the liquid after it comes through the bigger tank biodigester. So biodigester is the tank that we see with the cover in the facility. There's an electrical motor that basically, moves the material inside the biodigester tank, which is a mixture. So because it's electromechanical, similar to our water pumps kind of thing, but in a different configuration. So that equipment sits inside the liquid and a solid material within the biodigester tank. And since the tank, the system is operating on and off kind of thing, and it's old, so it was being planned to replace this year. But unfortunately, before even we had a time to replace it, it failed. So we expedited and we wanted to replace it because it basically mixed the solid and the liquid to initiate the digestion process and create the biogas. Then also, allows the liquid to move to the digested storage tank through the underground piping system, which is also clogged now because of failure of the mixture at this point. So it's an electromechanical component within the bigger biodigester tank.
Thank you. That does clear it up. Thank you. So we'll be cleaning out the digestate storage tanks indicated on our both of those tanks, and then replacing the mixer in the biodigester.
So there's
just for
three,
clarity.
Actually there's 3 things, right? So digested tank we clean out every year, and we take it to the farmland. This year, what we are also doing is that we are cleaning out those digested tanks anyways, but we are also adding a clean out of the biodigester itself, the bigger one, where the mixture is situated too. Because in order to take out the mixture, we need to clean that digester tank, which hasn't been cleaned in many years. So there's basically 3 tanks we are trying to clean.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, other questions from council? Mayor Burley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Liz, if you think about last time you baked a cake, you had a big round pot and you had a spoon in there and you're stirring it, that's what the digester tank does. That's a layman's way of explaining it. A question of clarity from the CEOs. Andrew indicated that this is time sensitive. I realize that for sure. Is the time sensitive in the sense that we must start applying this to a farmer's field by before the end of June? Is that the time sensitive? Right. I just want to clarify that because he seemed to indicate July and August, but I think it's June, is it not?
Through you, Mayor Mackey, that is correct.
Other questions from council? Council Corborn, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I guess I'm going back to the cleaning schedule. So the smaller tanks, if I'm using the correct terminology, are cleaned out on an annual basis. The larger one, I think I heard, hasn't been cleaned out for many years. What's the typical cleaning schedule for that? When was it done last? And is it dependent on how much the facility is used in terms of the proper scheduling for cleaning out that part of it?
Andrea, did you get that question? You're probably the best position to answer it.
Yes. So now I don't have information when it was cleaned last, but definitely I can say it was 5 years plus, and I think we can confirm that. And the second part of the question is very correct question. Yes, usually the frequency we clean out is 5 to 7 years, depending on the usage. Now, in this time, initially, we were not planning to clean out. We thought we can get maybe 1 or 2 years more. But then when we opened the roof and tried to take out the mixture, we found that there's a hard, solid, couple of inches on top of the liquid below that is basically like almost like a concrete buildup. Because as you know, when we bring in food organics material, there's also a grit and other kind of contaminant that comes with it, which basically that mixture basically takes it, floats it on the top. And we found that without cleaning it now, we are not able to take out the mixture at all. So usually 5 year is a nominal period, but depending on the use of the digester and how much capacity we are using, it can vary from 3 to 7 years. In our case, I think it's been about 5 years or maybe more than that. We haven't cleaned it, but we can confirm that. Sorry for.
Councillor Coburn, just in conversation with Mayor Burley, and I think I've been on the board for 8 years. I don't recall that it has ever been cleaned out. The lagoon was cleaned out, but I don't believe the biodigester has ever been cleaned out itself. Yeah, maybe lowered, but not completely clean. So going forward, we recognize that probably every 5 years there should be a thorough cleaning. So hopefully the future owners are advised of that. Sorry. Councillor Gregg, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question for Indra, I guess. When was it deemed to be not operational?
Indra?
Through your worship, when the mixtures went down, we continued, I believe, maybe a week or 2 weeks of operation with very careful, close, eyes on the functions of the. But eventually, we found that the gas production were being impacted. So that's when the mixtures were secured for replacement, then our team, did the inspection inside the digester in order to take out the mixture and replace it. And that's when we realized, that the digester was in a difficult situation and needs to be cleaned out. So I don't remember. I think Mike, it's been a couple of weeks now, right? Maybe 4 weeks that we stopped the operations of the biodigester for safety and prevent further damage to other equipment, associated equipment.
Through your worship, yes, it's been about, I would say it's mid-April. I'll get an exact date for you, but I would say mid-April, mid to late April, second or third week, since it's been offline.
Okay, thank you. So at our April 7th meeting, I asked the direct question as to if it was operational or not. And the question I got at that point was, oh no, everything's going just fine. So within a week or two, we've kind of ran off the trails. So I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Yeah, and Councillor, the mixture was again, due for replacement because based on the equipment life cycle, there was some expectation that the mixture needs to be replaced this year. But as we all know, we have equipment in our house and in our, other operations, we know they can fail anytime. Unfortunately, yeah, that happened, I believe, right after meeting, even around the meeting. So we continued the operation in a low scale to avoid, to release the pressure from the mixer failure. But eventually we decided to stop the operation to safeguard, digesters and other assets.
Other questions from members of council? All right.
Yeah, my apologies. I'll have to leave now for some personal emergency here. So thanks for the invitation. And I will work with both CAOs to bring further information on, long-term planning for this facility in coming days. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Indra, for your technical expertise. Councillor Ray, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mayor Mackey. I remember us being told that when we shut it down, that could cause trouble with the biodigester by having it shut down. And then this is about 4 weeks now that it hasn't been operational. So it was made and shut down, inoperable, because we didn't want it to affect other parts and break down other parts of the biodigester. So it looks like either way we're having trouble. It's sitting for 4 weeks, and now we're going to clean it all out. And I'm just wondering what other problems we're going to find after we clean it out, and see if there was some other operational things that were, found to be lacking or needing fixing as well. That's my concern.
Is there a question?
Well, it's kind of a question like, how is it we shut it down to protect it, but we're told if we shut it down, that could harm it. And we waited 4 weeks, and I just wonder why we waited 4 weeks.
Patty, do you want to respond to that, please?
I do. So just to, if I can just backtrack a little bit. So when we shut it down was actually April 21st. So that information at the April 7th meeting wasn't available. So with regard to Councillor Ray's question, so the idea of the cost, if we mothballed it, if we shut it down and mothballed it for a period of time, that's where the costs are going to come in to properly shut it down, and then additional costs to start it up again. So, and we've indicated that in the report, that with regard to the clean out that we're dealing with today, whatever the decision is on the biodigester going forward, we would have to disclose that it needs to be cleaned out. But the important thing is to protect the asset so that we don't get into a situation where we're going to mothball it, have it sitting, and then I believe the cost was $140,000 to do the shutdown and bring it back up again. We want to protect the asset. When it's being shut down right now, we're not receiving any revenues on the biodigester, which of course affects your operating budget as well. So we feel that, and in conversation with Aqua, that it's important to protect those assets today. So if you think of the way that Indra explained it, there's always some contaminant that's going to be on the top, and it gets hard. It's almost cement-like. That then comes back into the pipes. So the pipes in the biodigester are 8-inch pipes. Currently, they are operating at about a 4-inch capacity. So that basically, because of that small capacity, the mixer is not able to work. So essentially, it's had to shut down. So at this point, we're not causing any issues in terms of, harming the asset. If it were shut down for a longer period of time, Councillor Ray, then we would get into that issue that, it's like setting, a piece of equipment aside in a field, right? It starts to lose its value. We don't want to be in that situation at this point, because we believe that there is value to this biodigester. And perhaps to answer Mayor Mackey's question, we can't get into details, but we know that there are certainly some opportunities for councils to consider and their, partners, that sort of thing. That'll be a conversation for closed session. We're having conversations at this point, but we want to protect that asset so that when we have those conversations, we have an asset that has value to it.
Can I follow up with this?
Go ahead.
When shutting this down and cleaning the pipes, would that not be part of a shutdown? The cost of shutting it down? Wouldn't that be part of the process?
That's not part of the cost in the current estimate of $140,000.
No, but that
you would still have to do that on top. But the other part, as I mentioned, is that you're not receiving any revenues today on that biodigester, which has an impact on your operating budget.
So if we're shutting it down, we're not cleaning the pipes and tanks.
If you were
Part of a mothballing would be cleaning it,
Yes.
but there would be additional costs with the generators and everything else. They'd have to be properly oiled, and then there's monthly maintenance costs that have to be included. So the costs are higher for mothballing, but the 70 or 80,000 to clean out what we're talking about today would be part of the cost of mothballing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Gregg.
Oh, thank you. My question is, I guess my statement would be, if we're being asked to make a decision on this, I would love to know all the information involved with it, because we keep hearing this carrot that's in front of us, but we never hear what it actually is. We're expected to go along and make this decision, but we don't know. So I'm asking, can we go in closed session and hear about the actual facts on this?
CEOs, are you far enough down the road to be able to provide in camera any information to council?
Through you, Mayor Mackey, we're not. And I wouldn't want to do a poor job of presenting the details to you. The other thing is, one of the people that we need, and we need in person, is Indra. So I appreciate the comment and the concern. You know, and again, we're asking you to trust us that we have some things in the works. We're just not there. And if there had been any way to postpone this meeting and this decision that you're being asked to make, we would have done so. We are really just under the gun to get this asset cleaned out, operational, and be able to land apply in the month of June.
Follow up, Sean.
Thank you. So I guess at our last meeting, we sat with the Georgian Bluffs Council, and they were going to sit down and discuss this as well. What sort of decision was came up with then, since then, or has that discussion been had? Because I'd like to know even what your council's thinking. There's no discussion yet.
Sorry. Councillor Burley, you want to respond to Mayor Burley, do you want to respond to Councillor Gregg's question in regards to Georgian Bluffs discussion around the biodigester?
We as a council have not sat down as a council of whole and had a good conversation about the biodigester. We basically have been waiting for the CEO's report to come back to both our councils, so we have good information about our experience, or I'm trying to say our decision on. We haven't had that conversation, no.
Right.
And I just, to everybody here in the room, something we do not want to forget. This is very time sensitive. If we lose that window of getting those digester tanks emptied and out on the fields, we can't do it until next year. So everything is just done. By having the biodigester set down the amount of time it has, the other big important thing that hasn't happened is that the bugs in the digester tank itself are still working. They haven't gone away. But if you shut it down, it goes cold enough, they don't work. We're in deep trouble then. But everything's still working. Please, every council member here, go to the biodigester. Take a walk around. Look at these big tanks from the top down so you understand what they all look like and so on. And look at the digester itself. You want to see that thing that's hard and bubbly. When it starts feeling down, that means the bugs are dying. Then we have problems.
CO Fletcher.
Through your Mayor Mackey to my mayor, I think it's a great idea to have people tour the biodigester, but I would ask that we arrange a tour and we not just have people show up. Thanks.
Okay, I'm seeing hands all over. I'm going to go to Madam Clerk. Brittany,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
I just wanted to note that Councillor Coburn and Councillor Thompson have their hands raised to make comments virtually.
All right. Councillor Brian Thompson hasn't had the floor yet, so we'll go to Brian. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This is tough. We've talked about the biodigester a lot. We've had concerns a lot, and I don't know enough about the science, but I can tell you how I feel, and that is, I feel a bit like we're being asked to spend some money on a car that I'm thinking about selling. And I'm a bit worried about spending $1,000, and I'm using a terrible analogy, but I don't want to spend $1,000 to fix on a car that I'm going to sell for $700. And that's not to say that I think the asset isn't a value, and it's not that I think that, you know, in terms of real numbers, that it's not worth $70,000 or $140,000. It just feels to me a bit like our airport asset that we had years ago, where we just keep dumping money in and saying, but these contracts are just right here. Like, it's, these people are coming through, the partners, they're chomping at the bit to buy this and jump in and take it, but we can't talk about it. So I guess what I would say is, and this is where I'm a bit troubled. If we're so sure about these assets, about this asset, and we're so sure that we're at the 11th hour, and if we miss an opportunity, it's going to be awful, and it's this critical, then I think it's probably critical enough that we can share all the information that we should know before we make the decision. And that is, what's the next step? Who's the next step? Who are the partners that are out there? What's the offer? Because it's, you know, if you come from a fact-based or an evidence-based position, we've heard too often these things are right there, you just can't know about it, but put the money out. So I don't think I said that very eloquently, but it's again one of these things that we really are doing the spending before we look at the business plan or the what's around the corner.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Coburn, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Mackey. I don't think I could say it any better than my colleague, Councillor Thompson. I feel exactly the same way, and the carrot comment resonates with me as well. It feels a little bit like we have a gun held to our head here, and I too feel like we're missing some information to make good decisions going forward. Our council has not had the opportunity to speak about this. I'm not sure that I agree with that comment either. We have not made it a priority to sit down and have this conversation. So let's put it on the next agenda for our council meeting so that we can give some feedback and our staff can hear our thoughts as to where we feel the future of the biodigester should be headed. An example of not having all of the data that Councillor Thompson referred to was we were given a bit of a financial analysis as an attachment to the package. And yet it doesn't even include the 2021 actuals. So for me, I do want to have an idea of how much it's costing us as of December 31st, 2021 in last year. I want to know what those numbers are. I want to see a draft budget for 2022. That's the kind of information we all need, as well as some clear indication about the potential interest, I think is the term that our guest speaker referred to. I too want that data in order to do a proper analysis and make a proper decision. So let's make that a priority. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a decision for Georgian Bluffs, whether it's on the agenda. This may prompt something to be on the agenda if this is carried today. Did I see hands? Sorry, Councillor Barfoot, the floor is yours.
I got to get my thank you. I couldn't agree more with what Councillor Thompson said. My thoughts exactly. There's been too much holding of information that we need to make a wise decision. The biodigester was a good idea, but it was before its time. I've heard so many times, oh, we have interested people, we have this, we have that. I've never seen anything on paper that would make me change my mind. So, Councillor Thompson, thank you very much for saying it so, shall I say, eloquently. I have to run, folks, sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. All right, other questions? No, we'll go to Councillor Pringle.
All right, thank you, Mayor Mackey there. Well, I'm going to take a different approach than what I've heard so far tonight. I get that we're asking for another 70,000 a township here to reoperate this outfit. I get it's been a bleeding sore on a lot of cases for a lot of years, but at the end of the day, it's going to cost us a lot more than 70,000 a township to shut this thing down. Even though it's shut down, it's going to cost money. It'll cost money for the rest of our lives if we shut it down. So I can't see why we wouldn't take the effort. I put my faith in the CAOs and what they've done. I do take what they tell me. I do take what they tell me to heart. I believe they're working on it. I believe they're trying to get what we can for it. If we try and sell this as a lame duck at zero, it's nothing. So I understand it's cost a lot of money, but we're asking for $70,000 to get it back running. At least it's an operational outfit that we maybe have opportunity to do something with or sell or whatever. But if we shut her down, it's going to cost a lot more than $70,000 and it will never go away. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I appreciate what Councillor Thompson had said. Now, within the report that we received that's dated June 2021, it indicates the valuation of the facility. The lagoons are worth 1.1 and the estimated value of the biogrid is 2.4. So I think by putting a new fender on your car, if it's going to make it worth 200,000, you probably would. So I think looking at the value of the facility, that this is a small portion of it, is my way of thinking. And it's not going to be worth as much if it's not operational. And I think that's what the gentleman that was speaking, Indra, had indicated, is that he'd like to see it kept operational. So, and I agree that the CAOs have put a lot of work into it and staff into trying to evaluate what should be happening here. So I'm in agreement that it probably should be fixed. I know it seems like we just keep putting more money into it, but so that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Liz. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you. And I somewhat agree with Councillor Pringle's comments, but it isn't just 70,000, it's 90,000. We have to remember, if we're going to do this, we're going to do the mixer as well. We're not going to do part, but not all of it. And when I came into this meeting and doing my homework, it makes sense that we do this. My fear is I'd like to know what Georgian Bluffs Council is doing. What's your thoughts? Where do you want to go with this? You know, are we all prepared to put this money in here to find out that it's a valuable asset to you that you don't want to, and then we can't divest of it? That's my thing. I've been here close to 8 years now, and I learned to get gun shy because there was information being withheld. You know, there's a lot of information out there that was never brought out, and I feel your table didn't benefit from that information. So I'm gun shy on this. I'd like to know this information, and I want to know exactly what it is, because the carrot's been dangled far too long, and the carrot never showed up. So that's my fear. I'm in agreement that if we're going to go ahead with this, that we spend that money and fix it. We can't sell a broken used car. And I think that's a great analogy because it was in my head as well. But I want to know what we're going to do with that old car. Are we finally prepared to divest of it? Are we going to fix it right up so it's a sports car and that we're all going to benefit from a nice fast ride and some, money made out of this? But come on, here we are. Let's get a decision made here. Where are we going with this thing?
Thank you for those comments. Patty, I saw your hand, and then Deputy Mayor Gamble.
Thank you, Mayor Mackey. So I just want to point out one of the comments that Indra made. So with the biodigester being shut down, we're obviously not receiving anything. He has indicated in his presentation to you this evening that there is interest to take more stock right now without having to do further capital investments. There is interest to take more stock. So that would increase your revenue. At this point, you can't do anything. regardless of whether Georgian Bluffs decides to hang on to it themselves or to divest, the asset still needs to be maintained. What I can tell you is that between CAO Fletcher and myself, we have a work plan that we have created. We've had more talks on the biodigester with staff since January than I think in my 5.5 years with Chatsworth. So, you know, that's why we're bringing you folks together so that you do hear the information. One of the tasks in our work plan. So Councillor Thompson referred to the value that's in the feasibility study. That's the value of the asset that exists today. So that, you know, that's you know, the equipment. What we do know is that there's commercial value. So we have reached out to BDO, who does both of our books. I've also reached out to CN Watson. They're currently doing our development charges study, but they also do valuation. So it's not like going to a real estate agent and saying, you know, what's the value of this property? It's much more than that. So those are the things that we're working on. It absolutely takes time to get all of that information. So we've reached out to 2 firms to give us a price on what that valuation would be in terms of that commercial value, because we will be having conversation, and we have a list of firms and municipalities that are absolutely interested. But we need that valuation. We need all of the information before we start to have those detailed conversations. But I can assure you that those conversations are happening. And as I say, we need that piece in terms of, you know, if we were to, either party or both decided to divest, you know, I don't think it's just the value that's in the feasibility study. There is a real commercial value. When we hear that other municipalities are spending $9 million in putting in a biodigester because of the change in legislation, absolutely. And Carol, Councillor Barfoot mentioned, you know, you were ahead of your time when you actually did this. And so, you know, it's unfortunate that it's been so long. We recognize that there has been a bleed. You know, I think both councils recognize that. But I can assure you that between myself and Councillor Fletcher, we have moved a lot forward just in the last couple of weeks. Sorry, CAO Fletcher. We have moved a lot forward in the last 2 months in terms of the work plan. But as we mentioned at the April 7th meeting, this is going to take time.
Okay, Mayor Burley, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam CEO. When Georgian Bluffs have a conversation as Georgian Bluffs Council, we can't make any final decision. It has to go to 2 councils, 2 owners. I just want to clarify that, because we can't make a decision. It has to be both councils. I'm all for spending the small amount of money. I know it's another drop in the bucket, but I'm all for it to go ahead with this thing, because if we do not do it and not get that window of spreading this stuff out in the fields, we're beat. The Ministry of Environment will not extend anything. We tried it before. They would not do it. So I just want to point that out. That's how extremely important it is to empty those digester tanks, empty the pipes, get it working properly, and get it back up running to get ready to coming in. Saying that, I would like to be out of here myself by 7 o'clock. I do got a bit of a drive down the highway, and I just want to point out to everybody, I would seriously like to get out of here myself.
Well, you're certainly welcome to leave, Mayor Burley, whenever you see fit. We would still have quorum. Was Councillor Thompson? Sorry, Ryan Thompson. We have 2 Councillor Thompsons here.
Thank you. Thank you. I was terrified when I used my analogy. Sorry, are you still talking or me?
Oh, go ahead. Floor is yours.
Thank you. I was terrified when I used my analogy that people would think that I thought the facility wasn't worth more than $70,000 or $90,000. I certainly do. And I can even understand why we need to do this. And I can understand why we've needed to do this the 15 last times that we've talked about the budget, that we need to just put in the money because it's an asset and we need to keep it going. What I'm trying to say is we keep having these conversations and then doing nothing. And it's certainly, I agree with the comments that Councillor Pringle makes. And my comments aren't about a lack of confidence in our CIOs. I think they're working really hard at this. I think we continue to bleed, though, and I worry. I worry because, and I smiled when CAO Cinnamon said there's lots of places putting $9 million into these facilities because the legislation has changed and they're going to take off. And I'm just going to say to you, that may be the case, but that shot through me like a bolt, because when we jumped into this in 2004, we were all sitting around the table and we were saying, this is going to make us gobs of money because the legislation just changed and we're going to be pulling money in hand over fist. So I think that if the legislation has changed and this is a great asset, this should be a benefit to somebody in private hands. And I want us to get there, but I don't see any indication of us moving in that way. And I guess I was being a bit trite, but I would say the beauty of an in-camera conversation is that it happens in camera and nobody can share the details. And so if the information is so critical, I think we should have been able to share, just 1 second, turn the information we could have gone into in camera to share at least enough information to give us an idea what we're talking about. But I think we're past that, and I just wanted to provide a bit of clarification. So I'll stop talking now for good.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Kathy, go ahead.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Mackey, to the rest of the colleagues in the room and virtually, I want to make it clear also that this is not about not having confidence in our CAOs. I'm just trying to do my job, and that's to get as much data as I can and analyze the data so that I can make a good decision. That's, I think, what I was elected to do. So I hope no one's misinterpreting my pointed questions as a vote of non-confidence. That's not what it's meant to be. I think it was Councillor Gregg that said, you know, it would be nice to know what people are thinking. And since we haven't been offered that opportunity at our council table at Georgian Bluffs, I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I think that I don't care if this asset makes us one dime. It would be nice if it broke even, but what we haven't talked about is the environmental benefits to this kind of facility, and that's important. That's why we ought to be looking for it to survive. Just like any of our other services, we don't make money from them, and I think that's okay. Having said that, I don't think that this needs to be a municipal asset. If there's going to be commercial value, if there's going to be profit to be had because of potentially changing regulation, then cool. Let's let the people who run these kinds of facilities better than a municipality go ahead and run it. So I just want to be clear. I'm in favor of the idea from an environmental perspective. I'm not in favor of the ratepayers year after year after year shouldering the costs when we're not moving forward in any kind of beneficial manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple comments from the chair. You know, I've been on the board, I think, for 8 years and probably have been the biggest naysayer of the biodigester. Just, you know, lots of things that we've always been putting money into it and never seeing, you know, the revenue that was promised. And for a long time, I thought, yeah, this was premature, that it is a good asset, but just not for the time that we were in. And that's why I thought mothballing was, you know, a good option, because both parties, both municipalities still had the lagoon that was certainly, you know, available for all of our septic waste, which was really why the facility was there to begin with. On April 7th, we tasked, both councils tasked our two CAOs with a work plan. You know, that's not very long. We've only given them, 6 weeks, and I think there has been some movement. I certainly have seen that. I have a sense that that movement is happening, and that's, you have my blind faith to carry forward, but I'm certainly, all the comments made by members of council are accurate. And I do believe there's more information that we're all wanting to receive. I appreciate you're not in a position to be able to do that. The analogy that Councillor Thompson, both Councillor Thompsons mentioned about, putting money into a vehicle. I think if we're looking at trying to divest of this facility at some point in the future, we need to have it in a good operable condition. And that's why I'd be willing to support this request for the 70,000 or 90,000. Sean, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Just a reminder, as elected officials, you are in charge. You don't need your staff to put anything on an agenda. You can call for it and have it brought to an agenda. So if you're waiting on your staff, you don't need to do that. You can advise them the week before your agenda. I'm not sure how your protocols are, but you are the ones in charge. And if you want information, you can ask for it and you rightfully should get it. I understand there is some time here, but folks, this keeps going down the road. So if there's any councillors wondering why it doesn't come to agenda, there is options to get it on an agenda. If it is that important, there is a way to do it. Thank you.
All right. We will end. We started with Cynthia. We will end with Madam CEO.
Through you, Mayor Mackey, and I'll be really brief. I'm probably the newest player to this whole biogrid asset discussion, and I think I'm coming to really appreciate what the councils and the communities have been through for the last eight or so years. I do appreciate the comments, though, Mayor Mackey. I mean, when I came on board in January and started to work with my colleague on this project, and we've tried to move the agenda forward. We're not trying to be evasive with information. It would have been our intention that probably within the next month or so, we would have been back to a joint council meeting talking about some of the specific detail. What's derailed us is really just a curveball right now, and we realize that we're asking you to spend a little bit more money, but it is our intention to bring you information in the future. We're just not there with the details yet. So,
thank you very much for those comments. All right, we will call the question. All in favor of receiving or making the recommendation. I'll read the recommendation one more time, just so everyone's aware. That the approval of the immediate maintenance for the biodigester as outlined in report CAO 2022-03 be referred to both respective councils for consideration, which includes the immediate clean out at a cost of $70,939.14 and the replacement of the mixer at a cost of $18,500. All in favor? Mayor Burley has asked for a recorded vote. I will turn that over to Madam Clerk. Is a recorded vote something we can do in a joint council meeting?
Sure, yes.
Okay.
So when I call your name, please indicate your vote. For simplicity's sake, I will start with our virtual participants. Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland. Councillor Sutherland, you are still muted. Okay, we'll circle back. Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
Or
Mayor Dwight Burley,
Or
Councillor Gregg,
For.
Councillor Thompson,
Or.
Councillor Ray,
Or.
Deputy Mayor Gamble,
or
and Mayor Mackey.
In favor?
4. Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Well, to both our CAOs, I think that shows support for your initiatives and the work plan that was given to you before. So please keep us posted as quickly as possible. Thank you, both councils. Can I have a mover to adjourn? Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton and seconded by Deputy Mayor Gamble. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.